Welcome in to the best in paranormal programming. This is Darkness Radio. I'm your host, Tim Dennis. Today, folks, I am extra excited about our show. I have a couple of guys who I've known for quite a long time who I'm excited that they are finally, I shouldn't say finally, they've always had it, but they're getting a little extra attention. When I say little, I mean by millions, little extra attention. As they've been getting discovered by a little magazine known by Rolling Stone, just a little magazine known by Rolling Stone, but they're getting known for a different arena. They're getting known for their music. They've been known for their films. I'm talking about the Booth Brothers. The Booth Brothers have been known by you guys here in the paranormal realm for horror films, for paranormal films, and excellent ones at that. But something came up recently that we're going to talk to them about, and that is some music that they did in the 80s. We're going to talk to them about the music side of things. And by the way, Christopher St. Booth has a music project that's out right now that we'll talk to him about. We'll get into that a little bit. And Philip is with us today as well. We're going to talk to them about a project called Dead Still that's out on Tubi. I want to talk to them about that as well. So, folks, I think you know about their filmography, if that's the correct term, but we'll just say they have many, many projects out there. You know them for films out there like The Attached and many others. We'll go over that as we bring them in. Ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome back to Darkness Radio, the Booth Brothers. Brothers, how are you today?
We're great. Thank you for having us. We appreciate it ever so much. Thank you.
I want to start slow in this, and I know some people are familiar with what may have happened with this, but it started with a Reddit post in that there was a pink boombox that appeared with a song, and it was just a snippet of a song from the 80s. And I want to start with you, Christopher. What happened with this song that got people curious and said, well, do you recognize this song, and what is it? And first of all, they had the wrong name of it. And what was it that made you come forward and say, well, I know what it is, first of all, and where did it come from?
Well, I had to actually look at Reddit and the previous article that was in Rolling Stone, a bunch of other, to even understand what it was. We didn't know anything about it till around the end of April, when we got a message. Somebody was posting on some of our films, release ulterior motives. And I'm going, what's that about? I didn't even remember the title of the song. Anything. And I went, that's just really weird. So I thought it was kind of like, you know, those guys you get that this type stuff. Like, I didn't think about it. And then somebody sent me a Reddit article, and I went, okay. I clicked on the Reddit, didn't understand it. I clicked on the Rolling Stone that came out in 23, and it came up, and then a video went to YouTube, and then I listened to it, and I went, oh my God, that's our song, which just made our heart drop. And I went, what is going on here? And it was only 15 seconds of a song that they had. 17 seconds that they found. And I went, which was, I thought was a great song back then. And we found out a song that we did in around 85 was found that some kids liked, or one gentleman liked. And he posted and said, do you guys know this song? And it started a viral sensation, up to 48,000 investigators trying to find out where the song, who did the song, where did it come from. And then around April 28th, they found out, someone went to the Writers Society and found that found out that we wrote it, and then that was it. And then Rolling Stone reached out, and everybody reached out and said, you have one of the most viral songs in internet history. And we found it. What do you think? And there we go.
So is this because of Reddit? Is it because of TikTok? How did this whole viral thing start? Was it just somebody grabbed a hold
Reddit?
Of it?
Yeah, it was. Well, it was the last way. An app called. Don't quote me, guys. You'll kill me if I say it wrong. But I think it's called What's That Song, or What's Something.
Yeah, it is.
It was an old app where you would post on Google something, where you post, does anybody know this song, right? And that went out 3 years ago. And now today there was millions of people that love the song and over 48,000 looking. So it started with an Apple Reddit on what's that song or something. And then it went to Reddit, and then they started the big thread.
There was a big community which we were unaware of. I mean, you got to understand, this has been going on since November 21.
Wow.
And we had no idea. And then through 22 and 23, it was gaining a lot of momentum, becoming viral. And then enough for Rolling Stone to do an article on it, which, again, we knew nothing about. Imagine all this going on and we don't know.
Oblivion to,
you know? And then when they found out it was us, April 28th, which is of this year, not too long ago, all of a sudden our phones, the social media, every platform started going crazy. Chris's son, my daughter, all contacted and said, you guys are huge on TikTok. And said, what are you talking about? And we went there and saw all these people singing our song, all these YouTube videos, all these posts, and millions and millions and millions of views trying to find the song. And then our name got posted. And then it was crazy. And I looked at Chris and said, I don't know, what do you want to do? Because originally the song was licensed to an adult movie way back in the day when we were broke musicians and we just was, looking for money for our music. And the first guy, Call 92, I guess, found it on that. And he kind of disappeared because of how he found it and everybody was making fun of him. We owe Call 92 a big thank you. So they kept saying, release a clean version, without moans and groans, release a clean version. And Chris and I went, what are we going to do? I mean, honestly, Tim, this is a godsend. When you have 12.5 million people requesting your music, you can't just say, whatever. You really have to look at why that happens in the universe. I mean, what does that mean? Yeah. I've been wanting to play again for a long time. I haven't played guitar.
Plays guitar?
Yeah, I played guitar for at least 10 years. Chris has been consistently doing music. I went heavily into film, cinematography, directing, writing, editing. But I've always wanted to. And I said, I think this is the universe's way of saying, hey,
go back. Yeah.
Finish it. So the big search, and I'll let Chris continue on this, was find the song Ulterior Motives, or as you said, they got the words wrong. Everyone knows it, not everyone knows that. Though the hashtag is everyone knows that. And listen, Chris, you want to change it? Because we don't want it.
I didn't want to upset
mess up that hashtag.
We could change the lyrics, but we always rhymed it because it's everyone knows that you got ulterior motives, so it rhymed. So
right.
So at that point now, it was like, okay, everybody wants the re-release of the song, the clean version, we'll call it. So then became the search through.
If they want moans and groans in, we can put moans and groans in.
Yeah. But it became the search through 35 years of CDs or whatever music that we have. And I have to tell you, starting to search for it, which we did last month, both of us sat in the studio with tears in our eyes because we wrote a lot of great songs. We were produced by big producers, which we can fill you guys in later, just about how that all went about. But we were quite the 80s sensation. But we really never achieved this huge success.
We had a record deal with Capitol Records back in 85. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, something went wrong, and there was a legal issue with one of the investors that invested in the demo, and it was something went wrong, and they couldn't work with Capitol Records. So that deal, unfortunately, went under the table, which was really sad. But those were the songs that were going to be. We were known as these two white boys that sounded like Motown, and
they used to bring us in. True story. Don't laugh, okay? He drove us around in a Rolls Royce, his producer. I don't know if I should mention his name, but he did
probably not
big records. He did Tiffany's, I Think We're Alone Now, all those big songs, Debbie Gibson. And he heard us, And then there was all this issue about, God, you got songs like Wham or Culture Club or ABC, all these bands. He would bring us around to record companies, drive us around in the back of his Bentley convertible Rolls Royce.
Nice car, yeah.
And we would go in to the record company and say, you sing in one ear and you sing in the other. And we do these harmonies for all these songs. And we landed ourselves a record deal.
Yeah, so that's kind of where it is.
As corny as that sounds, it make a great movie.
You know what? Honestly, when I first heard the song, to me, it kind of brought me to that genre of music. I thought that kind of does sound like the Wham! Culture Club type of pop. And I was a teenager at that time.
Yes.
And I thought, well, that's kind of the genre that I'm thinking. In fact, when I saw the picture that you guys posted on social media, I thought it's kind of that genre. And it kind of shocked me because I've known you guys for quite a while now, and I've seen this version of you. And when I saw that version of you, I went, that can't be them.
Yeah, I mean, we're still rock. I mean, obviously, we're still rock and rollers.
Yeah.
We know, everybody seasons.
Yes.
Fine wine seasons. And I don't regret anything, any direction, because I believe the universe, we've pretty much been successful no matter what we did.
Whatever course.
But music, for me, has always been my first love. And I never gave it up. I still playing. I mean, obviously, if you can see all the toys everywhere, I mean, it goes on forever, Yeah. And it's for me, it's my heaven. Mm-hmm. And I really love music. So for us, a chance to do this and to go back to that fine time. I mean, we've done a few interviews. We've never talked about how I remember, and I'm sure Phil does, how it felt back in the 80s doing that song. And now I'm listening to it now, and it transports me back to then of how we recorded it in an apartment building in Van Nuys, California, on a 4-track or 8-track Fostex multi-track recorder with out-of-tune upright piano, which you can hear on a lot of the tracks. And then we brought in synthesizers and a bass player, and Phil played guitar and a drum machine, and we did it all in the 80s inside a little apartment building. Has no air conditioning.
We were, for trivia people, and I don't think we said this on other interviews, there was, for the people who remember, this may kind of date me, but there was the California Raisins. And the California Raisins were doing the Motown Temptations vibe, and they hired musicians that sounded like them to do, Temptation stuff. Well, we had those California Raisins.
Those were our musicians.
We're our bass player and our drummer and saxophone player.
In fact, if you see that picture of the chap that's sitting on the piano, he was one of the Raisins.
Really?
And then Kareem was a beautiful man. He was a great singer, and he helped produce and help guide us to how to sound black when we sang. And not that we were trying to. We were all just an incredible amount of positive and
it was such a wonderful time to have these.
We would go. It's something no one's ever heard. We would go down to. We met 3 black singers that were singing Motown music in Venice Beach.
Okay.
On the boardwalk.
On the boardwalk, and they were going, ooh, ooh, and we went, this would be great. And I said, why don't you come and be our backup vocals? And they were literally almost homeless, and they all lived in this little 1-room apartment downtown on Vine Street in Hollywood. Mm-hmm. I would drive down them, pick them up, drive them to the valley, and they would do backup vocals, and we would help them out and feed them and pay them, and they became good friends, and they would do our backup vocals. It was an amazing time.
Wow.
And I remember all that when I'm listening to this music now, and the music that the kids really love, and we're really excited.
I bet. Phil, I got to ask you this. It's been so long since you picked up a guitar, and now you're talking about picking it up again. There's muscle memory. And then there's, Chris talked about transporting yourself back into that place. Okay. So when you talk about hearing that, the old Fostex and everything, and putting yourself back in that place and back in that apartment, you talk about growth. You talk about spiritual growth. You talk about mental growth. You talk about where you are now. When you pick up that guitar and you start to play, you start to noodle around a little bit. Do you find yourself transporting yourself back to that place, or do you find yourself in Philip now and
Wow, that's a deep question.
playing something different? Do you find yourself playing differently?
It's a great question. I find myself.
I could tell me recorded it the other day, the track, and I'm sitting here at the console. I have a whole Pro Tools system here, and I turn around, and I'm gonna let you know. So I just had to say this because you never heard this. I turned around, and it was him back then with the same amount of energy and the same kind of charismatic vibe.
Mm-hmm.
It's like it never changed.
It was,
yeah.
Like I said, I'm tearing up, to be honest, a bit, because it was a part of me that I did for a long time. And I moved on to writing films, directing, editing, cinematography, but I never lost that.
Mm-hmm.
And picking it up again, because I've already tracked. And there was a video on Instagram and on Facebook of me tracking Ulterior Motives, actually. Mm-hmm. Redoing the guitar, because we're redoing the song, unless we can find the vocals, which we'll talk about in a bit. And I was transported completely back then. Just like I was 21, 22 years old again. And my whole body language changed. But to your deep question, I had the wisdom and the inner peace with it now.
Confidence.
Instead of the hungry desperation or ego.
Confidence too.
Yeah, that one had when they were 20s, like, look at me play. Now it was more like, I was born to do this. It's made full circle. I'm grateful for all those people for bringing me back into this element. So it made it even more powerful. And so now I started looking at Gibson Les Pauls again, because I still have a lot of old 80s guitars, which I was destined to redo these tracks with the guitars. Like, there's a MIDI guitar back then. We were talking about Steve Vai early on.
Yep.
And a MIDI guitar back then, I still have it, would trigger the grunge or the twang, whatever you're playing, but at the same time trigger any of these keyboards or sounds or Fairlight or samples at the same time. Mm-hmm. So you were able to get that sound. So when you hear Ulterior Motives and you hear that guitar sound, it was a MIDI guitar triggering regular guitar, type of Brian May harmonies kind of, but with synthesizers. So we went straight back to use that guitar again.
Okay.
So like I said,
and it sounds great.
This is bigger for us than more than just, oh, hey, put an 80s album out again. It's a life-changing thing. It's put us in a different perspective.
It's interesting, it's not the first time a group that's been influenced or been in the 80s has gone back to record that type of music, but I think it's the first time that a group has literally gone back and been literally grabbed from where they are now and told, we want to hear that stuff you did back then, and not done it since then. You've had groups that have been recording since the 80s that have decided they're going to come out and do new material, but not said, hey, go back and do your old stuff and do it like you did it back then. I have not heard of that. That's not been something that I've heard of.
The thing is, though, Tim, is these songs that were written back then, we tell our kids, oh, you missed the best era of music, or you've done this, all this kind of thing. But it's true, because you couldn't write these songs nowadays with the way it was so sincere when it was written. And these lyrics, these chords, and these sounds were written in the 80s.
You're sitting in a room with a lot of synthesizers, and a lot of them are modern versions of like the Fairlight, the PPG, and back then they were anywhere from $30,000 to $120,000. I used to work for Keith Emerson and Chick Corea and Herbie Hancock.
Oh, wow.
Helping with this Fairlight programming back in the 80s in Los Angeles. So these new synthesizers I have here, because the Fairlights are very expensive to maintain, they fall apart. I mean, talking about an old computer and stuff. But what's really crazy, I'm going back to listening to these songs that everybody wants to hear, and we found quite a few of these on these master tapes. I'm hearing these old synthesizer sounds and realized, why do these sound so 80s? Because they were 80s synthesizers and they were recorded in the 80s. And that has also changed, not just, what's going on, but technically now in my keyboard arrangements and the thoughts of which keyboards I should get. I have a lot of Moogs here.
Yep.
And Roland, of course, was a big 80s thing, but I'm just very excited where
we were going through all these old tracks, which we'll have to talk about what that's going to be like to release these albums again. Everyone's begging, all these millions of people. If we wrote a song, Don't It Make You Shiver, and, shiver all this nowadays, you say, oh, that's corny, or you're mimicking a band back from the 70s, 80s, 60s, whatever. But back then, when it was written, it was sincere, honest, true, with the passion.
Right.
So when you go back and listen to these songs, they are real. They're not like contrived or recreated or whatever. These songs, why the kids are, this is the thing, Tim, why are the kids grabbing on to music like this when we were Chris was putting snippets of these songs like Chemistry, what's the words to Chemistry? One of those ones.
One part you, two parts you, one part me, together we are chemistry. We can start an explosion.
I mean, these words, to say these nowadays, you'd go, oh, I'm beyond that. I'm in an ethereal mode. I'm in a deep mode. Or, I'm in this deeper
Gangster
thing.
mode.
But back then, it's that sincerity and honest that you did it with such conviction. Well, the kids are hearing that, and they're not hearing that nowadays.
We were pretty
Yeah.
high off all the hairspray we had back then. I mean, cans of it. I mean, I don't know if they still have it, but it was a white can with purple stripes on it. And we played the Troubadour, the Whiskey, the Rainbow in Hollywood back in the 80s.
We got to open up for Motley Crue at the Troubadour.
And the first thing we came in was an ammo case full of hairspray. I'm not joking. We would just spray that and it would be glued.
I had my Aquanet phase too, Chris. Yeah, yeah. I think we all did.
You understand what I'm saying about that sincerity? Because you go back to recreate it. Think about the movie business. Let's fast forward. What do they try to do? They try to rehash old movies.
Yes.
Nightmare on Elm Street, whatever was popular in the 80s. Well, in music nowadays, whatever it is, they're still trying to do that. But the kids see through all this and they hear this old 80s stuff. And you go on TikTok and they're singing it like it's the next Taylor Swift song, if you know what I'm saying, for popularity.
Yeah.
For popularity.
Yep.
And it's something that we recorded.
We grew up on Madonna.
Yeah, way back to
Sade, Wham.
way back in the 80s. So
Tears for Fears, The Cure, Duran Duran, David Bowie, Elton John.
Yep.
They were our favorites.
we're so excited because this stuff that we're about to release is the absolutely remastered quality-wise, but sincerity the whole way.
Yeah.
Chris and I don't know if you knew this, we used to, when we were in LA, we used to live next door to Michael Jackson.
Oh, wow.
And when I was dating my first wife, I used to sneak over the fence and his security guard would see me there before we got married with my first wife. And we got to meet Michael. And he heard these songs.
Really?
And he loved them.
Yeah, we have pictures with him. Yeah.
This is the 80s, exact
This
time.
was when he was doing Thriller and worked with Paul McCartney, the Doggone Girl is Mine.
He absolutely loved Chris's voice.
Yeah.
Really?
And if you've heard those tracks, they're really hot.
We were produced by the guy that not the one that Phil mentioned earlier, but we originally were produced by the Czech Gary Getzman, beautiful guy, and he went on to become the executive producer of Silence of the Lambs, and he worked with Jonathan Demme,
Talking Heads.
God bless, rest in peace. But he produced the Talking Heads Stop Making Sense album, movie.
Yes. Yep.
and he did UB40 Red Wine, and he was producing the LaToya Jackson at the time and a bunch of other people, and he heard us and he said, get these guys in, and he produced a lot of some of the tracks that we have right now, and they kind of they were really nice to work with, but it was a good time. A good time.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. I can't wait to hear them. I can't wait to hear what you guys are going to come out with, because it sounds absolutely amazing. It really does.
You're going to smile a lot because it's that innocence and energy back then in the 80s. Where
the question is how we're going to do it, because looking for ulterior motives, because we've started with the Rolling Stone magazine saying that we did find the rhythm tracks, the drums, the bass, and the guitar. We didn't have the lead guitar tracks or the vocals as of yet. So we re-recorded the guitar, which to me sounds we produced exactly the way it is. Mm-hmm. We're attempting to redo the vocals if we can't find them, but we are boxes weekly are arriving from old partners, old friends, God bless, people that have passed. Rick, who was Rick, who owned the apartment we recorded these songs in, had recently passed. His niece had sent me a box of his master tapes. They might be in there, so we're going to be going through that this week to see if they're there. Of course, if the vocals are not there, we're very much we have to go. We got to get ourselves a 1/4-inch reel-to-reel.
Really?
A box of cassette tapes arrived, and I need to find a cassette player.
And on top of it all, which is going to be a great treat for all those fans when we do release this for the summer, this album. And it's going to just be awesome because the songs are phenomenal. They're so catchy. You hear like one lick and it's stuck for the rest of your life,
Tim, we found 28 songs.
Yes.
Wow.
With vocals on that sound very similar to the style, not like, the same song, but like the style of the 80s. 28 songs with vocals. They sound really good. And I just spent the last 2 weeks remastering.
Oh my God, they're amazing.
The system behind me. And one thing I realized, and I don't know if you know this, for all you trivia fans out there, that one of the biggest traits of the 80s and the early 90s was to have big reverb on the songs because, and did you know why? I didn't know this, because in the 70s, reverb was not invented.
Yeah.
So when reverb came out in the 80s, everybody said, oh, well, okay, kept turning it up. So, like Berlin, you take that my breath away and all that. It's another one you hear.
Or Phil Collins in the air tonight.
So we made sure that the big reverb is on these songs. And they sound phenomenal. And I'm hoping everybody really loves these songs, but they are original. They haven't been re-engineered. I'm not redone. They've just been remastered, so they're the same elements. And there are a couple of tape creases that have not been able to be fixed, but just minor. But I think it's part of the charisma of the song. And we're hoping that everybody loves those songs as much as they like Ulterior Motive.
I think what's really cool is we also started looking through high 8 tapes. High 8, remember those?
Oh my gosh, really?
High 8 tapes of us, and we found high 8 tapes of us back in the 80s for this.
Recording these.
With the hair we recorded some of this stuff at Village Recording Studios, which did Sledgehammer, Peter Gabriel, Pink Floyd. We didn't do a tour of the studio.
I met Robbie Robertson when I was recording that actually there in Village Recorded down in Santa Monica, in West Los Angeles. One of the owners used to manage us, and he let us record a couple of the Motown tracks there. So yeah, we got to meet, Peter Gabriel and Robbie Robertson, rest in peace, and all those people.
But we found these tapes, and it shows us there at the mixing board and recording and doing these songs on a photo shoot. So it's going to be cool to put those clippets in with these songs so we can really...
Yeah, and the hair is that big.
Oh, I love the hair.
The hair is
amazing.
Yeah.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful. I miss my hair so much. Just saying, when you know,
You
when
can
you
still put Aquanet on that, man. I'm telling you. You can still
on the
put it.
bald head, you could put Aquanet on it. You think it would do anything? I don't know. I do want to ask you before we go to break about Skypolar now, and about this project that you have out currently. I mean, it's been out for a few months, but I want to ask you about the current music you have out now. And it's a project that you both put out. It's a video project as well. Is this correct?
Skypolar is an album that was created by literally going into this studio, this studio, and literally, and I'm very proud of it because people use sequencers, they use MIDI imputation, and they use hardware sequencers, DAW, digital audio workstation sequence. That album has no sequencing. Except a few arpeggiations, and I have 28 synthesizers in here, and I would just turn them all on and hit record, and I'd go in and I would just play, and whatever happened, I didn't rehearse it or anything. I would just record it, and the emotion would flow out. The expression I was showing you earlier about the expression would just flow out, and I realized, because I was feeling maybe down or depressed or anxiety, and after I finished it, I felt so in touch with my soul and the world. And I thought maybe this could help other people that are going through anxiety issues and stress. So the whole album was built to make you, if you're in a traffic jam, put on Skypolar. If you're feeling not confident, put on Skypolar. If you're feeling depressed, put on Skypolar. I believe the album transports you to a higher plane, a higher style of life, more positive. And that's how it was created. It was done 100% live with Moog's and all the different, PPGs and a couple of Fairlights and some of the most newest innovative tools. And then we adapted a music video to it, an hour music video to it, which is, what suits the song, whether it's robots taking over the world or whatever it is that matches the chemistry of the songs. And that is currently available on our streaming, spooktv-od.com, our streaming site where the album is. And then the album Skypolar is available anywhere you want to stream your music, Amazon's, Apple Music, Deezer, wherever Tidal, wherever you want to stream your music. And but again, it's more of an electronic homage to Pink Floyd, to Alan Parsons, to Emerson, Lake and Palmer, and Hans Zimmer, but all original, done by what I'm feeling at the time, and it's done pretty well. It's done very well.
More than just a stream of consciousness and that type of composing, I'm going to ask you the same question I asked Steve Vai last week, and that's this. Do you feel like when you sat down, when you're getting ready to play, do you feel like you almost channeled that from another place, like a collective consciousness? Do you feel like maybe the universe or God or wherever put that into you? Or do you feel like it came from yourself? Do you feel like maybe it was 6 of one, half dozen of another? Where do you feel like it came from?
I feel like I'm working in tune with the universe because Philip and I have had so many disappointments in our life, career-wise. You get a record contract, you think you're on top of it, and there's no reason for it to fall, but it falls apart for whatever reason. It's heartbreaking to, an artist. And then they may put a movie out and they say the movie, for some whatever reason, doesn't work out. You put a lot of time into it and it's heartbreaking. So where my head has become is when I go in there, I'm just channeling who I feel I am, and I feel I connect to the universe, and the universe, because I couldn't do it again. When you go in and do an album like Skypolar has 22 songs on it, and you're sitting there playing live and you go like, now go do it again. I can't do that same emotion, that same feeling, because the universe helped me. It's so technically, I listen to it and I go, how did I do that? I couldn't, I wasn't, I'm not on any drugs or any like ecstasy or some kind of, special power where you go in and you got it. It's like I was channeled and I did it and it turned out great, but now I got to do something different. So I think the universe, I listen to the universe and just I didn't care if people liked it or didn't like it. I just did what I felt that I needed to do, and I hope people like it.
It's funny because after that album came out, a month or so, all this stirred up on the 80s song. And it was like it was stirring apart.
It was like
the magnet.
we were the opening act maybe for the universe, saying, okay, you got it now. We're going to make sure you stay it in. You know, it's kind of like when a relationship breaks up, it hurts so hard. And if it's an ugly relationship breakup, whether it's with friends or lovers or whatever, it's so ugly that you know you can't go back.
Right.
So universe does that. So you can't go back. You can only go forward. With what is happening with Ulterior Motors, I have to say, we can't go back to being who we were. Not saying we weren't cool with it. I'm just saying we can't now.
Right. Excellent. With that, let's take our break. When we come back, let's talk about the future. We can't go back, but we can go forward. Let's talk a little bit about going forward with film work. Let's talk about going back and talking a little bit about what's been in the past, and we'll talk about what's in the future with film work. We're with the Booth Brothers, and we're talking about all things Booth Brothers. When we come back, we'll talk about their film work and what's in the future. We'll talk more about that next, right here on the best in paranormal podcasting. This is Darkness Radio. Welcome back to the best in paranormal podcasting. This is Darkness Radio. I'm your host, Tim Dennis. With me are the Booth Brothers. We've got Christopher St. Booth and Philip Booth.
Hello.
And we are talking about all things Booth Brothers. We just got done talking about the music of the Booth Brothers, and we are going to move forward. We're going to talk now about film. I want to start off, first of all, about Dead Still, which I believe is on Tubi right now, correct?
Yeah. Dead Still
Apple TV too.
is on Apple TV, Prime, Plex TV, and quite several other streamings. Dead Still is a movie that we wrote about a death portrait photographer who inherits an old camera. And an old camera, a modern photographer, I should say, that inherited his grandfather's old death portrait photographer. And the cool thing about that is if you know the Booth Brothers' work, anybody who does that, we don't use props. We use actual haunted items, okay? So it became a search for an actual death portrait camera that was used back then. And that, I think, led a lot to how the film turned out. Because when we were on that set, for example, there's an old phone in the house that Ben Browder, who plays the lead next to Ray Wise, he goes and investigates the house, and there's an old phone. You'll see in the shot he shines. Well, when we were filming there, that phone used to call. It was an old plantation home in New Orleans. And he used to call, I think, unfortunately, the slave quarters. I believe that's what they told us. But we left the phone in because it's so old looking. Well, the phone rang while we were shooting.
Oh, my gosh.
And we went,
It's not wired.
yeah, that's what I'm saying. We went, okay. And then Adam Johnson, our second camera and second DP, goes over, holds up the wire. It's just cut. And I never saw a room clear faster. It happened in front of the whole crew. But, focusing on Dead Still was a fun movie to make because Ray Wise is an amazing actor. And when we met Ray Wise, low budget movies, we work really hard and make them look like multi-million-dollar films, but we don't necessarily get all the rehearsals we'd like. So we weren't able to work with Ray other than Zoom. But the first time we met Ray Wise was in the Hilton Hotel the day before the shoot. And he came down fully dressed like Jack the Ripper with the top hat. And he had grown a white goatee and mustache. And he looked amazing. And he just looked at us. We've never met him before. He goes, I love this script. I am Wenton Davis, the Death Party photographer. And to have such a magnitude of talent, on an indie film, say that to us.
An honor to work with him.
What an honor that was. And he just stole the movie. Dead still happens to be one of my favorite films we've done. And it's done phenomenally well. It was on Sci-Fi. Originally, Sci-Fi was supposed to have it 1 year.
Mm-hmm.
It did so well, they kept it for 7 years.
Yeah.
And when we finally got it back, we said, well, we're streaming it. It was picked up, I think, a week later on all the networks and has been doing really well. And again, without going back to the music, I liked it. It's an honor to see that the passion you put into something maybe a decade ago, 7, 9 years, 8 ago, to have an audience that finds it again, that still sees that it's not dated or time, it's going to date stamp. It's just an amazing film. I hope everybody gets to check that out. Was so fun.
We have actually 11 films streaming right now. We have all the paranormal documentaries we did for Discovery Plus and for Sci-Fi Channel streaming, as well as we have Death Tunnel, Dead Still, Dog Place. Those are the horror movies, and we have a brand new one we're working on. But there's actually, if you just look out there, we got like 11 films out there right now.
Yeah, and that was the thing for us with this year. It's still the same year.
Yep.
But this thing with the music coming about, at the beginning of the last year, every one of our movies got picked up by every major streaming platform, and they decided to air them all within 3 months. Time.
Yeah.
And so for us indie filmmakers who have to kind of get their own promo going and our own advertising going.
You have to promote 11 films at the same time.
Going, oh my God, they're going to get sick of us because we got to promote. They're all so great. I mean, and because they were asking us at the Ohio State Reformatory on the presentation, I want you guys to put your best clips from your films that you've done over the last 20 years. And we're going, that's a hard thing to do, whether it's paranormal or horror. Because with Dark Place, which is playing on Amazon and Tubi and Apple and Plex and all the other channels, we won the Independent SAG Writing Award. And that's the very first script that we did when we did our first film. And it had Matthew McGrory for your rock and roll people. He was in House of a Thousand Corpses.
He was in Devil's Rejects.
Yeah.
Devil's Rejects. He was the big giant. He
played Tiny.
Yeah, the big giant. And it was the first role that he actually used his real voice in, because he had some kind of, I don't want to call
he had gigantic
disease or something, whatever that is.
Oh, yeah.
Because he's like almost 8 feet tall, and his size 14 feet, and amazing man. But they never let him talk. And when we heard his voice like that, we said, you got to do this character. And the fun, taking the seat out of the Range Rover to cart him around.
Yeah, we couldn't transport him around because he was too big, so I had to take my front seat of the Range Rover out, and he'd sit in the back so he could stretch his feet. He was such a beautiful man.
And then
and rest in peace. He
passed, and we went to his funeral where Zombie was there, and he had done all those incredible films. I feel that every one of our films has a story, whether it's, you go back to Death Tunnel. Okay, and that's still, Death Tunnel's 20 years old, Tim.
Yeah.
And it's still playing on Amazon and all the platforms. And that film started us off because we never had a paranormal experience before we shot that film. And when we shot that film, so much stuff happened in Waverly Hills Sanatorium that Sci-Fi Channel approached us and said, if you make us a documentary about a film company shooting a horror movie, but the real stuff happens, we'll give you...
We didn't really have to make it because that's what we were doing anyway. So.
We'll give you a show, Spook the Ghost of Waverly Hills, which became a documentary, which did over 2 million on Sci-Fi on that first week it aired. And that launched all these films after that. Every film has something monumental that either happened to us or success happened or something big that changed something in our life.
Yeah.
It's quite a...
They're classics. I mean, Death Tunnel and Spooked are classics.
They are. I mean...
Yeah. I was, with that, I do have this question, and that's this. With the fact that Death Tunnel and Spooked were such classics, did you have a hard time getting that away from Universal and Sci-Fi? Was that a tough thing to eventually get those rights to want to stream them and want to?
They've always... Sony has been fantastic to us. To this day, we still receive love.
Sony picked up that still because of the popularity.
They've been great to us. They we still get royalties from them. They've been very honest and very cool and very great. And Sci-Fi, we knew all of them like we know you, Tim.
Mm-hmm.
So when we were doing Dead Still, we were, in the conference room writing the script with them because they wanted to be a part of it. They were really nice.
That was the first film.
But they changed, though, because Viacom bought them, and they changed over Comcast and all that. So now none of those people, unfortunately, work there anymore. But it was easy because they have a term, and the term after 7 years expired. And we took it back, so it was easy.
That was the first film, going back to Dead Still, Tim, that we wrote in conjunction with a conference room, NBC Universal, that we would have weekly meetings where a whole board of people would sit around and they'd review. A lot of people, your listeners might find, or viewers find this fascinating. When indie people go to pitch a film, they always go, I got to write the script first. I got to get a great script. And I think a good story, we should take it from a novel. But in indie filmmaking, they want a treatment first. They want a 1.5 page treatment to see if they like the idea. Once they like the idea, which took us about, we wrote the vampire one, and they hated it. I loved it. Then we went this, and we said, what about Dead Still? We love it. Then they said, okay, we're going to script. And then it went to script form. And only after you wrote a 9.5 page act, which sounds like a theater thing.
Yeah.
Act 1, they wanted each death scene, each key point in the movie explained, and then the beginning and the end. And then they said, we love it, we go to script. But just think if every indie company did that first, it would save the poor writer who spends 5 or 6 months writing this masterpiece.
No one likes it.
That no one likes, And so, and we've learned so much over the years, of how to make films and how, to craft them.
Wow. I have to ask you this. Yeah, recently, Christopher, didn't you auction off a lot of the stuff from the original Exorcist movie that you did?
Good question. Yeah. Talking about monumental experiences.
Well, for those who don't know what we do, we have a whole brand new audience now because of the music. But I have many companies. I write books. I still do music. We do films, TV shows, and I also run a jewelry, like a St. Mahalo, which is like Viking jewelry that sells, Gothic and really spiritual handmade jewelry. And I also have a company called Haunted Bazaar, which has like voodoo dolls and haunted items, and real haunted items, questionable stuff, true crime, like the Amityville horror. I have the real Amityville horror photos that no one's ever seen, and letters from a lot of serial killers and all that stuff. And then I had the real exorcism box of Annalise McKell, which was the real Emily Rose. And I had that in our house for many years, which the movie The Attached is somewhat about. And then I had the copy of the real Exorcist diary. It came probably just right after, because I had gotten, just when I was talking, last time I saw you, I just got somewhat divorced. And after that, I wanted to change things up a bit. And I'm not one who wants to like hang on to stuff like a hoarder. I believe it has its time. And for you to get new energy in your life, you have to let go of things.
Right.
So I decided to let them go. Zach Bagans picked up The Exorcist Diary, and he picked up the Exorcism box of Annalise Michel. He created I'm told, I had never been there yet, but I was told he created a new room called the Exorcist Room.
Oh.
And when you walk into his museum, there is the Annalise Michel box and the copy of the diary and some other things that he got from us. And he focuses on the real seriousness of what we do, the attached, and the exorcism, because it was very much real. And
her name is carved
very
in the back. Her name,
I think Tim saw it.
Back of that.
Didn't you see it, Tim, when you were there in Chicago?
Yes, I did. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. So it was very dark, and dark never worries me because, I feel I'm on the right side of it.
Yeah.
But I think sometimes when you get a little unconfident about your life, you start blaming the darkness a little bit more than you should.
Yeah.
And so that time I'd realized it's time to let go of all that stuff. And I mostly just have really positive, if you want to call it, which I do, voodoo stuff now, because there's incredible voodoo witch doctor masks and incredible statues all over the house. In fact, I have one right behind me. This is interesting because this belonged to a big rap star, and I can't say his name.
Okay.
But he belonged to a big rap star, and it was in Interscope Records, if you remember Interscope Records.
Yeah, that was Mount
Why I have this. This is a voodoo doll, and why I love this is that this is all obviously hand carved and hand with blood from different sacrifices of animals. But this here is he's holding a family. He's holding a family member, and this is protection for your creation.
Really?
This is what this is meant for. And what better place for it in the studio to protect the creation of our music and creations of our songs.
Yeah.
That is our family, is our creations. So this is kind of what I collect now. So
very appropriate. Yeah. That's very interesting. Very interesting.
Yeah. And I think it's working. So
yes, I think it is.
I hope it's working anyway.
I mean, a lot of people ask us, because I think we did for about 7 years, we would bring the actual diary. And for your listeners and viewers who aren't familiar, William Blatty wrote the book, The Exorcist, from this journal of this actual exorcism in 1949, where it was a boy and he changed it to a girl. Where Friedkin got a hold of that book and made the famous Exorcist movie from. And we got a hold of that diary out of these 8 or 7 copies of the Vatican.
Thanks.
And we got, fascinating story, a copy from parapsychologists that used it in a trial to defend somebody who said the devil made me do it. And he needed a copy of that diary that was submitted to the church for the Vatican to prove his belief that this stuff was real. And that's how we got the actual copy of it. We took a paranormal group to every place in that diary in St. Louis and investigated every location and used that diary as a template. And the evidence that came, that's a great one too, if I may tell you, your viewers and listeners, to watch The Exorcist File, Haunted Boy on Amazon, Apple, Prime, and the other channels, because that's all 100% true story. And you know this, Tim. Our stuff is not staged or made up. We're not ghost hunters, we're documentarians. We're only there to present it, and then it's up to you.
Your interpretation at that point.
And our movies became that way because our movies were so engulfed in real paranormal horror movies activity that before we would write the parts of these movies, characters, we would investigate the actual places these crimes or suicides or ghosts happen with evidence, get enough accumulated consistent evidence, and then tell the victim's story that we give in the recreations based on those EVPs and evidence. So we became their voice, their vessel in our documentaries.
Yeah.
Now that's a pretty cool niche because you don't see that
Yeah. Yeah.
in today's show.
Yeah, so the writers of our paranormal stuff are actually the evidence we find out before we go to talk.
The script,
We have the history, but we go out and we, like, for instance, we were at a place, and I really can't mention which place, but we went there from Los Angeles, and it was just me and Philip and the owner of the house. There's no children there. We don't let children on our paranormal sets at all because I find that could be somewhat dangerous. Personally, it's my opinion. But
Yeah.
So when we got back, I listened to the tapes, and there was a little girl saying, "Mommy, why is Daddy doing this to me?" And there was no girl there or no anybody. And it was like, my heart broke. And it said, there has to be some kind of closure. We must tell that story.
Mm-hmm.
So we flew back, and we did the story. And we hope that it helped, cross the light.
Yeah.
With the story we could tell that they couldn't tell anymore.
I mean, ghost hunting is a fascinating thing if you're really into it because it's been, as you well know, heavily commercialized, and it's become which TV show am I on? Who am I on? What am I doing? It's become this whole.
We should probably do the pose.
Yeah, this thing. So Chris and I have removed ourselves from that aspect of it.
With due respect, we find that very silly. And I think it's just about telling the story. And as we said at the last show we had, it's all about the people that have departed, the spirits, the ghosts. We're there for them. We're telling the story. They're the stars. We're just helping as much as we can, and we're allowed to tell their story. And it's not about, how we look. And
another key issue for that is people become obsessed with the paranormal.
True.
And I don't think it's a healthy thing to be obsessed with death. I think to helping people cross over so you can understand your vibrancy to want to live or help them live through your experiences.
Spend so much time. I think I talked about you, Tim, when at the last show I saw you at, that people spend so much time with the dead and the concept of dying that they forget to live anymore.
Right. Yeah.
It takes away, and you understand that you are living, so you're communicating with the dead, the ghosts. Why do they want to communicate or even give you the benefit saying, hey, I'm going to communicate with you, unless you're full of energy and positivity and living? Because that's what sadness and limbo and all that stuff that goes when you're taken too quickly and you don't know where you're at. So they want to be around people that are positive and happy and appreciate life. You can respect the death by appreciating life.
I was just smiling then because I didn't mean any disrespect for the dead, because the first thing we did when we went to the Ohio State Reformatory is we put is going back to the first part of your interview.
Ulterior Motive.
A big boom box into the Ohio State Reformatory and played Ulterior Motive through the hallway.
Yeah.
Because we thought they could use a bit of happiness.
Yes. Yeah.
Instead of music. Ghost, why are you here? What happened to you?
Yeah, let's just get out.
How about let's have a drink, a laugh, and say, it's so good to meet you.
That's dance.
Right. Right.
And make it so goddamn serious,
Right. It does get to the point a lot in the field where people get obsessed with one transition, one part of life that, let's face it, by the time we get to it, we're not going to be focused on it, right? It's just this one little sliver of what ends up being a very long process of what we go through.
When you get to the end, I have to. Recently, my girlfriend's father just passed, so Errol, rest in peace.
Yes, yeah.
And it hit her and her family hard, and it hit me because we're very close. But at all death comes, that when you get to the end, you don't want to talk about death. You talk about life. You remember your whole life goes through your whole life, and you remember even your last ones as you're just talking to your grandmother now visits you before you pass. So you want to talk about life. So why let's talk about life when we're alive.
Right.
Because that will get you more paranormal evidence than just dwelling on everybody's a demon, everybody's, provoking this, and we have to walk away from that stuff because we want to be respectful. And I just think we need to be more positive. That's all.
Yeah. And not only that, but I think we also lose the lesson of keeping that loved one, not only in our hearts, but also teaching the lessons that they taught us to the future generations, and keeping their spirit alive within others. And you know, there's bigger, more important lessons surrounding them to move on and pass on, rather than focusing on the negativity of their passing. You know, I mean, there's so much more to do that we don't focus on, rather than the negativity of their passing, which it just it kind of confounds me at times, you know, as to why we're
they've
focusing
already
on the
passed, so there's no reason. They already know what's going on.
Yeah.
What they would love is saying, you know, hey, you're still looking good. You know, let me see how I can help you. Hey, it's your time to, like when our mom passed, we had to literally say, Mom, it's time for you to go. She goes, I just want to come and visit you guys in California. She had cancer and she was in a bad place. And we said, Mom, we will see you, but it's time to let go. And then within minutes, she did.
Yeah.
And it's because she felt, okay, these guys are cool. I do got to let go, because they don't know when to let go. And you need a good friend. You need someone that's giving you good advice and positive thoughts. And I think that's what's been frustrating with the paranormal, is that there's a little bit too much. I mean, I'm not saying it's not out there, darkness and demons, and because exorcisms sell, you know. But when you've been involved in that, like we've done quite a few shows on exorcisms, it's very depressing and very dark.
Yeah.
And you'd have to shut down the editing equipment and go out and say, let's go look at flowers for a while so we can clear ahead. Otherwise, you could go off the deep end.
Yeah.
I mean, we have a clip, of stuff on YouTube channel, Spooked, was it Spook TV?
Yes,
Spook TV YouTube channel is doing so well, and we have a clip on there. And the most popular one is the one from The Attached, and it just hit 1 million views today, and I think that's pretty amazing. But I also look at what the fascination is, why that clip over the other ones. And it's the true story of Emily Rose. And I think what's fascinating is the historical references to it is amazing. A lot of people don't know she was, you know, there was actual 6 demons, you know, and one was Adolf Hitler. And I think this is incredibly fascinating stuff. And I think the history, the facts behind the case, all this stuff, to me, overwhelms the actual evidence. The whole story, it's like when we do Soul Catcher, which is releasing the next 2 months, we were the only ones that they let on the native reservations. They wouldn't let Ghost Adventures or Ghost Hunters because they wanted somebody that wouldn't exploit the story.
Okay.
So they let us.
I'm not saying that they were going to exploit.
No, but they just knew us from our reputation of being compassionate and the things we saw. But it didn't matter. We saw amazing things and got great evidence. But the elders were such great storytellers.
They're actually the best spirit hunters I've ever seen.
And you can sit down and they tell you, and you just feel afterwards like you've learned so much about life and the value of life and what they've been through. And I think, why are we doing paranormal if it's not examining our own mortality?
Right.
You know, it's not about watching a light beep in the corner. Oh, look, it's a red. Yeah, something's here. And everybody's got their phone out. Well, did you think that maybe that is affecting it?
Yeah.
It's about the experience.
Right.
You know? And that's what I think we overlook, you know.
Yeah, it's your intuition and your gut feeling. I think is your strongest. EVPs, I think, is the best evidence, where you can actually have a containment where you know that it's not anybody else talking, and you get a voice like right there in the middle of a conversation that you know very well. You know, it isn't contaminated from other people walking around or anything. And then your gut feeling, knowing that there's something here. And you do that, by the way, with music or writing. When you write as an artist, you write from the heart, you do music from the heart. It's from the gut feeling. And I think being spiritually awakened and enlightenment, and you realizing there is another world over there. Because when you realize there's another world over there, you're really going to be good in this world because you're heading that way. So I really think that just having your gut intuition and being a very good person is the strongest thing you could do in ghost hunting.
With that being said, Christopher, what's the best piece of evidence you feel you've gotten? If EVP is the best, what's the best EVP you guys have gotten over the years that you feel you've gotten?
Yeah, I think that I always thought that Philip and I somehow attracted evidence without us even looking for it. Because again, we never went in as a ghost hunter, and I never pretended to be one. In fact, I really don't enjoy much of it because it's quite boring. I do like going there by myself or ourselves and sitting there and just sitting in the hallways and feeling the energy and the vibe, and then filming and just filming the location. And that's when we're being really personable. We get all these things. So with that said, I was able to capture a little girl that was in the tunnel of Waverly Hill Sanatorium, which was my first experience that blew me away. And then we did Children of the Grave, and we got Shadow Children. That's overwhelming. If you guys haven't seen it, you got to check it out.
That's on Tubi, too.
Children of the Grave is on Tubi.
All these ones.
Spooked is on Amazon and Tubi and all that. And so every film that we've done has really, I think, has some of the best evidence, including the one for the Soul Catchers, where we see 20-foot shadow people come up, and you see the Native Americans running out giving up tobacco.
Yeah.
So you see the real people running on the floor, and then you see this huge shadow that comes up like this, like that. It's overwhelming, and
The Exorcist file is pretty amazing, because we watched for the people who haven't seen it, we watched a cross rise up on an investigator's neck,
a burned neck,
live right in front of
it. It's a burned mark.
He had a thermal imager, and he said his neck felt like it was on fire. And we looked at it. Sure enough, there was a white cross that rose up on his neck. And then, of course, what's cool about the way that we do it is we went straight to the diary that we had, and in the diary it referenced the cross rose up on the boy's body. And then we pulled the carpet up, and it's in the documentary. You'll see the crosses scratching the floor. And we're going, this is like supernatural detective work. This is amazing. But to sum that up, it wasn't a cross like a Christian cross. It was an X.
And I think all that was great, and we were cool with that. But the recent one, which was the last paranormal document we did, was The Attached, which is also available on all your streaming services if you want to watch it, was about what happened when I started getting like the Annalise McKell, Emily Rose exorcism box, and I started dealing with it, and I kind of felt more depressed and darkness about it, to the point that I started feeling I was seeing things out of the corner of my eye that they weren't negative or positive. They were just not things I wanted to see. Like, say, the very thin and frail body of Annalise running around my house in my basement. And I'm just going, I don't really want to go there,
Right.
I don't want to. So it's time to move on. And we told her story, and we told it very respectful.
Oh, yeah.
She's actually a saint in Germany, Saint Annalise McKell.
A lot of people don't know. They dug up the grave to change the coffin out. And when they opened
2 years after,
when they opened the coffin out, her body hadn't rotten. And it's indicative of becoming a saint. So they made a monument to her. And a lot of these things that we do based on, like whether it's the Exorcist story or the Exorcism Emily Rose story, but the real case, they leave out some of the most redeeming part of what happens from it all. Like in the Exorcist file, they went and they touch it. Your trivia people, Exorcist 4 of the Exorcist series of the movies, the devil was never after the boy. It was after the priest, because
to break his faith.
He had given up. He was giving up, right?
Yeah.
Because he had taught 35 students, and they all died in the Pacific World War II, and he was giving up hope on God. But what was really fascinating was that boy was his nephew. A lot of people don't know yet. That was the nephew of the real Father Bowden, which Max von Sydow played. So he went to his uncle to be exorcised in St. Louis. And the words that rose up on his chest wasn't like in the movie Help Me. It was Louis. So they said, we need to take him to St. Louis for his uncle to do that. And it was all a ploy to get the priest to give up that thing. And that, to me, is the mind-blowing. As a filmmaker, a documentary, that is like, oh, this is the high stuff. When you put all that together, you know, that's his history. That's like his story. It's like finding the lost ark, but in paranormal, like the exorcism box, like the diary. That is real cool stuff. Yeah.
Christopher, I have to ask you this. So when you find that cool stuff, then you bring it in under your roof. Then you realize that this cool stuff has now infiltrated your own life to the point where it's affected your life.
Yeah.
How does that affect?
That's what the attached is about.
That's what the attached is about. And now you've made that part of your art. Now it's affected not only your life, but your art. And now you have to exercise that out of your life. How does it change the direction of your life?
I'm very, I don't know if you guys can see, but I'm covered in nothing but spiritual tattoos. They're Buddhist and old Aramaic and old Tibetan, and they're all prayers and positive thoughts. Not like religious. I don't have a crucifix on me. I think man did a great job of screwing that one off, though I do believe in it. I just think that man has monetized that so much. So with that said, the spirituality that's inside of me, I don't worry about it if I know when to say no, which is what you need to know in life anyway, when to stop and when to turn another road and say no. So I knew it was time to get rid of that. And it actually worked out not just financially, which we took that money to invest in our musical career from selling the stuff, but also knew when to get away from it, despite, TMZ jumping on me being possessed, which is sells magazines. Cause I don't know if you saw that, but they said I was possessed and stuff. And that's not true.
I guess 5 million.
A lot of it happened, but they seem to focus on the things that are, will sell, which I get, I understand that. But at the same time, I went through something that happened inside me, the growth inside of me that, if you saw the TMZ story, that something was growing inside of me that the doctors took out of me and they sent it to Harvard, and Harvard couldn't figure out what it was. It looked like it had teeth and it had stem cells, so maybe it would have been a third twin, but they didn't know what it was. But it happened around the same time as I had the exorcism box and stuff like that, and I almost died. But that I'm not blaming it on that, because I think you're quick to blame it. Oh, I picked that thing up and now, things have gone bad financially, or I got divorced. What happens if you hate the woman anyway? It's not a bad thing. You're getting divorced,
right?
But no, you got divorced because of that. Well, maybe I wanted to get divorced. It's no big deal. So I think we jump to blaming that stuff. But I don't look at it that way, because like with the voodoo, a lot of people say, oh, voodoo is bad. No, voodoo is not bad. Voodoo is built for protection from the very beginning. You can cast it the other way. It's no different than taking a knife and stabbing somebody or using it for a good reason. That's the same thing with a lot of this voodoo stuff. You can take it either way. I do things the right way, where I honor, I respect it, and I don't cast spells. I just feel energy from it. You feel the positive. The house is full of it. Positive energy that protects. It's meant to protect negativity from. I'm not scared of anything but humans. Humans are the scariest. When we did the Exorcist file, the scariest thing were men, not the devil. It's what a man could do under the influence that they think they're being possessed by the devil, or through the art of holy war. They are just absolutely mercilessness. They will do the worst things in the world. Man is the most evil entity on this planet, not the devil. The devil is an inspiration, as God is an inspiration. So when it comes to saying do I get rid of it? My belief system, also very Eastern Indian, Hindu, though I'm not a Hindu, but I believe that their religion is so beautiful. I won't get into that, but it's absolutely gorgeous. But all of that is just pushing positivity and saying, if you want to take me that direction, do it. But I mean no harm and I evoke no negativity. And it always works out. It works out very positive.
I think a good example of that in and how it affects music is lightness of being. Lightness of being is like when Trent Reznor recorded in the Sharon Tate house, I think it was a Fragile album, and he was on the verge of suicide. He talks about openly, I hurt myself, all those songs. He was in a very dark place. But the idea of recording in a place like that, we could record stuff in a haunted asylum, but if we're in a dark place and not in a lightness of being, we're going to attract that to us. But the idea of being around historically cool stuff or whatever, such as these items, isn't the object. You just have to have lightness of being.
And we don't judge. Like if you pick up, say, the Devil's Bible, which I have a copy of, which is insane. We don't judge it. We just tell the story. And negativity and the devil is narcissistic anyway. So they're going to want to say, yes, please talk about me. So as long as you're not judging, you're in a safe zone where your mind is open, because if you believe in the devil, you have to believe in God. You can't believe in one or the other, because without one or the other, you can't have it. So we cannot have the great creation we have without having generous destruction.
Yeah. I got what you're saying. I believe that. Yeah. It's interesting though that in order to steer yourself positively, get what I'm saying here. For every yin, there's a yang, correct? You have to have balance in your life. I find it interesting that because with the two of you are incredibly positive, and no matter what negativity is thrown your way, you seem to bounce back from it, and you come back and you spin incredibly positively off of it, and you continue forward. You guys have had an immense negativity thrown at you throughout your careers, yet you continue to spin positive, and here you've got this incredible positive upswing thrown your way, which I love to celebrate with you. It's incredible, and again, I commend you on it. And around the time of The Attached, it got about as negative as it could have got with you, which, and I applaud you for that. I'm not putting a question out there as much as I guess I'm just recapping or trying to sort through in my brain how most people, and I think most paranormal people, and I'm just kind of going back to that one point that I guess Philip was pointing out too.
I think that we're British from Yorkshire, England. See, I have Viking tattoos everywhere.
Yes. Yeah.
And I didn't realize why I'm so intrigued in it. But we are Anglo-Saxons. The name Booth means mud hut because that's what we used to build. I know that's not very sexy.
No, it isn't.
No, but hey,
mud hut. Hey, mud hut. But the thing is, everybody dies, but not everybody lives.
True.
So we really want to live, especially seeing what the world is at right now. And I think I just love to do is, the only thing I really want to do is inspire people. I mean, I love to make, living at doing what I love. And luckily, thank God we have been doing that. But I just love to inspire people and help people and care about them. And hopefully they can find, their way faster than we did, because we've gone through a lot of no's in our life, if you know what I mean. A lot of no. And you're going like, I'm getting back up, I'm getting back up, I'm getting back up. And I don't think our heritage has ever backed down. Right. We got back up.
I think
by the way, thank you so much for saying those beautiful things.
I think that there's reminiscent some of the famous British battle scenes where they just keep walking and they all keep falling, but they just keep walking, because if you're not afraid to die or not afraid to fail, They have no power of fear over you if you don't. And you're just going to go move forward regardless.
The great thing is, if you don't stand for something, you'll fall for everything.
Right. And I guess where I wanted to finish that point is there has to be a foundation. You have to have a foundation in order to maintain that strength. Okay. So other than the two of you leaning on each other, and again, you say booth in your culture would mean mud hut, and you would think that mud hut wouldn't have much of a foundation.
Not the best term, yeah.
But from mud you make bricks, and bricks have the strongest foundation. Okay.
Yeah.
So with that, the two of you make a very strong foundation together. Twins have to be the strongest because they're from the same cellular makeup, right?
It's hard too because we feel for each other. So if he's having a bad day, I can feel bad without even knowing it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so it's really hard. And it's like we just try to, because when my dad, before he passed, he told me, please take care of your brothers. Not that I'm the older brother, because we have an older brother. I'm older than, no, you're old.
I'm older than you.
He's older than I am, 1 hour.
Yeah.
But I always felt that, because Phil was, when he came out, he was in an incubator. He was a pre-baby, I guess they called it. What do they call pre-me?
I guess.
Carny folk. Who's carny folk?
I need to be cooked longer.
So he was they kept him in the hospital for weeks. And I think for that reason, he's always maybe gets the cold before I do. He gets sick before I do, or gets it.
Yeah, that's true.
So I felt like we have to take care of each other. And sometimes, obviously, people just... To be a twin is an incredible blessing because we're really the same person divided in two. Mm-hmm. And but also it's hard because, you know, we've been able to put competition aside and everything that goes on with siblings like that and work together, because it's like, you know, I'm a keyboard player and I wish I had two more hands because I only have two hands. In this case, I do, you see, and that's how we work together, that we have an exact, God, we could use an army of you know, that kind of saying.
Yeah.
Well, we do.
Yeah.
It works out in film because, you know, you'd have somebody doing another specific job, producing whatever, scoring, second camera, whatever, but they do it just as well as you would do it. Passionately, authentically, because that's it. You don't have to worry about going over and making sure that they're not bringing everything to the table. So it's been that way. And a funny story is, being twins, we were dressed alike when we were young kids, and we hated it. And we wanted our own identities. But it was actually Sci-Fi Channel that when we did After Death Tunnel, it was Philip Adrian Booth and Christopher Saint Booth. But they said, we're calling you the Booth Brothers because we want to market it. That's when that started again.
Yeah, I never liked being front.
Except for Who's Who, which was
in front of the camera, but they said, well, you tell the story so well, you guys go out and do it.
Yeah.
You know,
except for when they were doing Back to the Music thing, when they were, you know, doing the band's name. Because Chris asked me the other day, he goes, well, the Who's Who, is it WHOSE? Who's Who, or is it Who's apostrophe Who S Who's Who?
Possessive, yeah.
You know, and I said it's Who's Who with the apostrophe because it's also a double entendre of the Who's Who. I'm part of the Who's Who. You know, but they'd always come up, Who's Who?
Yeah. Let me ask you this as we start to kind of wrap up here today. We've talked a little bit about the past. I want to talk about the future. You mentioned Soul Catchers. Can we you've given us a little bit of a preview, but can we delve a little bit further into it? Now, you mentioned something about you're going onto a reservation, but can you give us just the premise of what this new movie's about?
Well, what we've done is we've released, we've done about, I think, 14 projects. One almost, it seemed like we need a vacation.
Yeah,
almost one a year. Yeah. Well, that ain't gonna happen now. But so we're releasing them all on the new format. streaming, I guess. So we have like 11 out, and the new film that we just finished, besides Soulcatcher, was not a new film, but it's called Never Blink. And I don't know if I told you about that, but that's about what happens if you can see when you blink in the darkness, because when you blink, it's about 0.8 seconds that it goes by. And if you add that out throughout the day, that's 48 minutes a day you blink, and you actually go into the darkness, because when you blink, it gets dark. So you actually are missing 48 minutes a day in your life. This is true. So we found a way to capture what's in that darkness that you're missing, and it's scary as hell. That's our new movie called Never Blink, which will be coming out next year. It's a horror movie, and it's very intriguing, as it, obviously.
It's a really high budget, very complex movie. It was a lot of fun to make. We've had such success, going back to Soulcatcher, with our streaming titles, that we've remastered them and released them just like our music to a newer audience, and they've been eating it up like hotcakes. So Soulcatcher will be out, I would say, probably, would you say for sure, for Halloween this year, right?
We're gonna Children of the Grave 2 will be launched. And Soulcatcher will be launched for the Halloween season. Soulcatcher is about Native American spirit shapeshifter.
Yeah, we all know what happened to Native Americans. A terrible tragedy.
It's the first Holocaust genocide way before Nazi Germany. 8 million Native Americans were murdered.
They were taken along the Trail of Tears. This is called Soulcatcher Trail of Fears, because what we do is we investigate every haunted Native American boarding school across the Trail of Tears.
Okay.
I mean, who would do something like that but us?
Right.
And these schools are mind-blowing on a cinematic documentary.
The Indian boarding.
Some of these are underground, and they're like 100,000 square feet underground. Wow. And these are amazing to see. And the stuff that we captured, the Native American group, Native American.
We got shapeshifters, skinwalkers, and shadow warriors is what they call them. Guardian spirits is what we call it. It's incredible. And it will be coming up with streaming everywhere. And we talk to the elders. They actually tell the story, and they say, point your cameras over there, because they know where they are, and we do. And oh my God, there they are. It was a beautiful and a very.
We were in the boarding school shooting something, and on the walkie-talkie, one of the lead investigators was part of the tribal. We had to do the powwow and everything, even get approved to get into this place. Said, you need to come out here now. I went, wow, God, they really know when something's out there. So we walked out there, and sure enough, on the thermal imager, person was this tiny. There was forming in front of us, whether you want to call it elemental spirit, skinwalker, a figure 25 feet tall that resembles of a Native American chief wrapped up in a blanket. And it was such a hard edge, and possibly you just not debunkable. You could not debunk it. It was amazing that they knew immediately, when this was happening, and they were not surprised or freaked out by it. It was a common thing to call upon them with the trade of tobacco, but to capture it like that, it really does make you realize. And going back to all of this, Tim, when you're a ghost hunter, if you're really into ghost hunting and you have these experiences, what do you do afterwards? Yeah. Okay, great. Well, I've seen something so life-changing. Now what?
Right.
Well, I would hope that you would use that experience to look at your own life. You would use these religions or customs, like with the Native Americans who have such wonderful customs. And
every experience is like a breadcrumb, so you should follow them to the right path, is how I feel.
So I would think what people will get out of Soulcatcher is, I would have to tell you, you will definitely be scared if you're into the paranormal, but you're going to have to get your box of tissue out, because we talk to the real people in those.
The Native Americans at
boarding schools.
Literally.
Okay. Just like all our shows, we talk to the real people there. And it's so sad.
They would have belt lines where they would line them up, and they would have to run, and everybody got the chance to hit them hard with a belt. They would cut their hair off. They would punish them if they talk their
Native language. Yeah.
or talk to the universal gods. They had to become Christian.
I mean, imagine the mentality that you would take some of the beautiful names that they have, like they would represent like big, tall bear or whatever, and they change it to John Smith. I mean, that's insane, right?
Yeah.
But that's what they were doing. You'd have to be a John or a Jane. It's insane.
Yeah.
And they were wiping out this culture, which is pretty typical of what's happening in today's
So
world.
anyway, that's Soul Catcher, and it's going to be released for the Halloween October. It is a paranormal documentary, and it does have shapeshifters, skinwalkers, guardians, and many other evidence. And it's a beautiful, and I think we loved it because we got over 1,000 emails saying from the tribes saying thank you for helping us tell our story. Wow. That was very, very rewarding.
Yeah. We'll look forward to seeing it. That's for sure. Most definitely. And again, wherever you get your streaming movies, definitely look forward to seeing that in the future, and look forward to seeing all the projects you guys have coming out. And we'll have links in the description of this program. Guys, I'm so excited for the upcoming projects and the success that you guys are getting coming your way, and the positivity that you got coming your way.
Well, first of all, thank you, Tim, for having us on the show. And thank you, listeners, for listening to us, and also continue to support us over the last, I want to say 20 years, but
25,
whatever years it's been. And we're still doing it. And we still will do paranormal when the right opportunity, when a story needs to be told. We're very much interested in telling it. When a song needs to be written or needs to release, we would love to do that. And thank you to all our new fans who is making us feel like kids again.
Which is crazy because these music fans, all these millions of music fans, are now watching the movies.
Yeah.
And they're mind blown about these movies. And so I don't want to put one over the other because it's all part of who we are.
Yeah.
I think it's important. You don't need to do one or the other. Why can't you do both if you do it decent? I think that, it's versatile and it's balanced, like you said. Balance is everything. You too much here, you too much here, see what happens. So when you're perfectly balanced, you're right there.
That's right.
And then we go.
You can be a complete artist. There's no reason to have to segment yourself. So, yeah, absolutely. So, Christopher, Philip, I appreciate you both for being on the program today.
Thanks so much.
Thank you. Thank you. I want to thank both Christopher St. Booth and Philip Booth for being with me today. Both of them, beautiful, wonderful, caring human beings that have gotten into this filmmaking business, the paranormal business. And it's amazing because, and I'm just being candid here with you. I'll be candid with you and frank with you here for a moment. There's times where in the paranormal field, you deal with negative entities a lot. You deal with negative energy a lot. And it can drag you down. It seriously can be. And those two gentlemen are two of the most positive gentlemen you could ever meet. And you would hate to think that maybe sometimes the negative stain of the paranormal field would bring people down. It tends to bring people down. I know a lot of people in the paranormal field who have gotten ill, who have had the field bring them down. I've known people who have died in this field because of negative circumstances that have had to do directly or indirectly with this field. And I would never want that to happen to these two men because of what a bright, shining light the two of them are. And they put out such wonderful products. So I hope the best for them. I want to see the best with their success. I'm so tickled pink. You have no idea how tickled pink I am about the music success that they've seen within the last month or two. Just this rise in success and in this viral fame that they've had. I can't wait to hear the stuff that they have coming out, the 80s revival stuff that they have coming out. Can't wait to see especially Soul Catcher and Never Blink. And actually, I have a small story for you real quick before I leave you today. I wanted to shoot a small scene for Never Blink. Christopher had asked me at Michigan Paracon last year. I tried to get a scene done for him at my eye surgeon, who I'm going to see today. And it couldn't be done, and I was so upset. I was upset with my eye surgeon. He quoted HIPAA laws as the reason why I couldn't film this scene. I wanted to do it. He wouldn't allow himself to be filmed. And basically what I wanted to film for Christopher was this. Christopher wanted a scene because I told him about these shots in the eye I was getting to treat my retinal vein occlusion. And essentially he wanted a scene of the needle going into my eye and me not being able to blink. And he thought that little sequence would be a good opening sequence, a tight shot of the needle being inserted into the eye. Just the wincing that most people would do, because to have to do that and not being able to close your eye, just the thought of that makes most people cringe. It makes me cringe thinking about it. And I get it done once a month, or had been getting it done once a month. I told him it was incredibly creepy. I was down for it. I wanted to do it. I begged my eye surgeon to let me do it. Please let me film it. Please let me film it. I was going to shoot it on my iPhone. I asked my eye surgeon twice. I begged him. I even begged a nurse just to secretly shoot it. They wouldn't let me do it. And I was so pissed. And finally I had to tell Christopher, I'm sorry, I can't do it. It was heartbreaking. He's like, oh, it's okay. I didn't figure they'd let you, especially with HIPAA laws and whatnot. But so disappointing. I really wanted to do that for him. I really did, because I think it would have been absolutely cringeworthy. I'm really looking forward to Never Blink. I think it's going to be an awesome film. So, but with that being said, I really do wish all the success in the world for those two gentlemen, because they really are something special. It's rare that you find a gem in the field that you wish the best of success for. And I really do wish those two brothers the best of success. So go check them out. Check out the music, check out the films, and I encourage you highly to do so. We have links in the description of this program, so you can do that. So go ahead and do that. Reminder, weekend is coming up. We're, I guess, fully into summer now, ceremonially, not seasonally, but ceremonially after the Memorial Day weekend has passed. So with that, better weather is coming. So if you can, help out a neighbor who maybe can't help themselves with yard work. Get out there and help out a neighbor that may have some physical problems. Do that. Maybe even help with cleaning the house. While you're doing that, get out and enjoy some life. Get out there, because it's short. Get out there and enjoy life as well. But be a light in someone's darkness this weekend, if you would. Do that as a favor to your buddies here at Darkness Radio. I want to thank Jess, and I want to thank Mally as well for pitching in and doing the heavy work. I do the light work around here. They do the heavy work. So thank you to both ladies for helping out this week. It's greatly appreciated. That's about it. That's all I got. Thank you so much for continuing to listen to this program and continuing to be a light in my darkness. There you go. Do us another favor. If you enjoy this program, if you love what you're hearing, tell a friend, tell a neighbor, tell a family member, and tell them to tune in. If they like this sort of programming, paranormal and true crime, let them know we're here, darknessradioshow.com. That's all we can ask. So until next week, when we got more great stuff for you, I'm Tim Dennis, and you've been listening to the best in true crime and paranormal podcasting. This is Darkness Radio.